So, health as well. It's a cliche, but it's true, right? Without it, there's nothing. I mean, all the fame, all the money, all the, recognition means nothing without health. So I would say my maternal grandfather, that is my mother's dad, was a big influence on me. He was an educator by profession, honest to a fault, highly educated, good family man, but always led a healthy, balanced lifestyle. He was an early riser, and my most enduring memory of him is he would always, always wake up with a smile, never with a frown, always ready to start his day. For the first time in my adult life, I would look in the mirror and find myself appearing a little chubby, right? So I'm like, okay, something's got to change. This is not who I am. So around the time our daughter was born, I decided to change my ways and started paying more attention to my health. So it was sort of an organic realization that I needed to do something to become a more healthy person. I remember one statistic just on that, right? So this is a little dated, but I think I heard that at that point, 60% of the entire world's heart disease came from people of South Asian descent. And roughly speaking, people of South Asian descent are about a sixth of the world's population. So pretty disproportionate. So it's a journey, right? So I guess in terms of how and why this sort of lifestyle works for me, I would say, like many things, it's nature and nurture both. I tend to be more moderate in my lifestyle. So extreme things, crash diets, quick fixes, cutting foods completely from your diet, those types of things never really appeal to me, right? So I've instead subscribed to kind of a slow and steady wins the race approach when it comes to health.
So that leads me to my next question: that what are the top 3 motivators that have guided you in your journey thus far? Hi viewers, my name is Upesh Jain. Greetings from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm the host of the Exec Talk channel, a forum I started to talk to CEOs, executives, and other luminaries about their journeys and distill their experiences and learnings for our viewers' benefit. While we are on this roller coaster called life, getting educated, making our mark in the corporate world, increasing our net worth, finding jobs, we typically ignore one key aspect of life, and that is health. We typically put health on the back burner until we are forced to think about it or address any issues. Today, I'm going to talk with Prasad Saranjame, an accomplished high-tech professional who is a health hero who proactively addressed this aspect of life early on and took health by the gauntlet, changed his lifestyle, and lost 35 pounds and continues to sustain a healthy lifestyle. Prasad is also a yoga practitioner, instructor, and a wellness coach. I will talk to him more about his health journey than his professional life today, actually. He works with organizations like the South Asian Heart Center and now is an advisory board member with Crack the Wellness Code, whose chairman and founding trustee is Naren Bakshi, whom I interviewed a few months ago on this channel. Professionally, Prasad is an operational strategist and people-centric leader who has held roles ranging from divisional head of IT to chief of staff for VMware's CFO to head of corporate security, having immersed himself in fields like IT, finance, security, engineering, and business resilience. He has worked for names like Broadcom, VMware, McAfee, and Honeywell. He holds a BE in mechanical engineering from the University of Mumbai and an MBA from the University of Maryland. Prasad, it's my pleasure to welcome you to my channel and recap your journey. And I'm pretty sure my viewers will be inspired by your story and what you stand for.
Thank you, Upesh. Thanks for having me on your wonderful channel. I've seen some of your past interviews and really appreciate the great work that you're doing.
Thanks, Prasad. So without much ado, let's just get into the Q&A. So Prasad, tell me about your early life. where were you born, raised, and your home environment and role models? How did that influence you?
Absolutely. So I was born in a place called Nagpur in Maharashtra in India, but I was raised in Mumbai. So I consider myself a Mumbaiker, proud Mumbaiker, if I may say.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up in a middle class Maharashtrian family that focused on education, like a lot of families in India do, and being good human beings, and really emphasized the values of hard work, discipline, and moderation. Along with my parents, in terms of role models, I would say my maternal grandfather, that is my mother's dad, was a big influence on me. He was an educator by profession, honest to a fault, highly educated, good family man, but always led a healthy, balanced lifestyle. He was an early riser, and my most enduring memory of him is he would always wake up with a smile, never with a frown, always ready to start his day. So, all of this ingrained in me the importance of working hard, being a good person, and leading a moderate, disciplined lifestyle.
That's great. I mean, whether you believe it or not, I mean, these things, uh, you absorb a lot from, observing and osmosis from role models like this. So that's great. Also, Prasad, tell us a little bit about your professional background and what were the factors that made you think about your health at an early stage, besides just looking at your maternal grandfather. Uh, I mean, you were here in the Silicon Valley embarking on a high-tech career. Uh, most people are immersed in their careers at that point in their 30s, I would say, right? Mid 30s to late 30s. What created that awareness?
Yeah, so I started my career as a HVAC HVAC design engineer. And then once I got my MBA a few years after that, I moved to management roles. So I worked in various operations and IT leadership roles across some of the companies that you mentioned, across different industries. And as I got into my mid 30s, I would say mid to late 30s, life started becoming more complex and challenging, as it usually tends to happen.
Mhm.
Both on the work front, as I started advancing my career, with it comes more responsibility and challenges, but also on the home front in terms of starting to have a family and all of that. And I wasn't paying too much attention to my health like many of us. So while there wasn't a specific trigger, I guess just, point in time, over time, a realization dawned on me that I needed to do something and change my lifestyle. I could feel that I was more stressed than I used to be. And for the first time in my adult life, I would look in the mirror and find myself appearing a little chubby,
Mhm.
right? So I'm like, okay, something's got to change. This is not who I am. So around the time our firstborn, our daughter was born, I decided to change my ways and started paying more attention to my health. So it was sort of an organic
Mhm.
realization that I needed to do something to become a more healthy person.
Mhm. It didn't feel right, is what I'm hearing. You get
Exactly.
that sense that are you 100%? Are you relaxed? Are you, is your demeanor even keeled? That kind of stuff, right? So,
Exactly.
and once you start a family, that realization becomes more pronounced, I guess, because you're responsible for more people. So, okay. And then, you actually took some concrete steps. And so, what motivated you to go to South Asian Heart Center? Were you suffering from any issues, or there was a camp and you attended that? I mean, how did that come about?
Yeah, so it sort of felt like, in retrospect, it felt like it was meant to be. So fortunately for me, I'm blessed with relatively good genes, I should say, thanks to my parents. And we really don't have any family history of major ailments or lifestyle ailments in the family.
Hmm.
As I said, I came to a point in my life where I proactively felt like I needed to start thinking more about my health and change my lifestyle. So what happened is we were at a friend's place. I still sort of vividly remember this, although it was quite a while back. And after dinner, we were chatting about, do you run, do you work out, those types of things. And somebody happened to mention the South Asian Heart Center. I'd
Okay.
never heard about them. And as the name suggests, they're focused on heart health and then also diabetes and a few other things. So I wasn't really thinking actively about, heart health or anything of that sort. My wife said, "Hey, go check them out." And so I did. And, I'm not much for exaggeration, but, I have no hesitation in saying their program, which
Mhm.
focuses sort of on kind of a comprehensive lifestyle, including diet, including exercise, meditation, sleep,
Mhm.
along with the South Asian Heart Center's program that I've been a diligent follower of now for the last, I would say, 16 years.
Mhm.
And then along the way, I also got introduced to yoga, sort of late in my life, but I took to it like fish to water. So I became a yoga instructor and I've been practicing yoga for the last, 10 odd years. So I would
Mhm.
say a combination of the South Asian Heart Center's program and my yoga practice really transformed my health. I started watching my diet, became more mindful of what I was eating, started exercising a lot more regularly, staying more active, and also found myself over time to start becoming more mindful and centered.
Mhm. So one more thing, the South Asian Heart Center also kind of highlights the South Asian community, which might have characteristics of being more susceptible to certain diseases, coronary
Right.
diseases, or heart-related uh, diseases. So in that sense, that they have a lot of data on a lot of people, and they might make recommendations that are more pinpointed and suitable to your lifestyle, right?
Exactly, exactly. So, I mean, I remember one statistic just on that, right? So this is a little dated, but I think I heard that at that point, 60% of the entire world's heart disease came from people of South Asian descent.
Mm-hmm.
And roughly speaking, people of South Asian descent are what, about a sixth of the world's population. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty disproportionate. So you're absolutely right. So a lot of their recommendations and what they do is focused on specific genetic risk factors that South Asians have.
Right. Okay, awesome. So you were aware, you took the first steps, you changed your lifestyle. So let me ask you this. A lot of people try fads or diets, but are unable to sustain it. Why do you think you were able to sustain it? Was it just your personal discipline? Or what were you thinking? What were the thoughts going through your mind every day? And then, once you took a vacation, did you get right back into it, or you dragged your feet on, going to the gym or doing a yoga session?
Yeah, it's a journey, right? So I guess in terms of how and why this sort of lifestyle works for me,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, like many things, it's nature and nurture both.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what I mean by that is, the nurture part is what I told you about earlier, my family, the influences I had. Right. So that was sort of in my upbringing, sort of what I call the nurture part.
Mm-hmm.
But then my parents tell me that I was always a pretty disciplined and sort of, moderate kid. Right. So I was kind of born with that personality, similar to my maternal grandfather, like I described to you earlier. So
I
that is the nature part. So I think it was that combination of who I am as a person
Mm-hmm.
and then the environment that I grew up in.
I see.
So, as a result, I've always felt better doing things in moderation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I get teased by my friends. It's like, you're boring, but, that's just who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I usually don't like to overdo things, whether it's food, it's parties, staying up late, we all have fun, but,
Right.
if given a choice, I tend to be more moderate in my lifestyle. So extreme things, crash diets, quick fixes, cutting foods completely from your diet, those types of things never really appeal to me, right? So I've instead subscribed to kind of a slow and steady wins the race approach when it comes to health.
Mm-hmm.
So all these gradual and consistent lifestyle changes have worked for me again because of my kind of nature and nurture.
Right. So it's great that it worked for you. Why do you think it doesn't work in the case of other people? Is it because uh, time to results is not overnight, and it's not a get rich quick scheme where you lose 35 pounds in a week. And so because the results are not coming in, people get disillusioned or discouraged and don't sustain whatever steps they took.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, we all sort of, need to see validation or need to see results of what we are doing. I think it comes down to sort of feeling that, motivation from the inside, right? It's you don't do things, most of us don't do things because somebody says we should do it, right? I kind of feel like intellectually all adults know what is right for them, right? If you
Yeah.
listen to the voice deep inside, there is that sort of what I just call, innate common sense that we all have. So I think the challenge is, whatever it takes. Sometimes it's a wake-up call, and that's okay. Sometimes it's just, realization that dawns on you. But regardless of what the trigger is, I kind of feel like it has to come from the inside for it to be sustainable.
Right.
Because then otherwise you're sort of chasing something, you get bored, you move on to something else. So until that sort of inner voice comes out, I mean, it didn't come to me until I was in my late 30s, right? Maybe
Right.
for some people it comes earlier. So it just, I guess everybody is different, and whatever trigger works for you, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, well said. Yeah. Okay. So now I wanted to talk about a little bit of your association with CWC, Crack for Wellness Code. So I did mention earlier, I did talk to Naren Bakshi, who kind of, along with some other people, start this movement. And he himself is a health hero. So you can check out the interview I had with him on this channel. But what made you think about the CWC, and how did you get so immersed in it?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. So I was at TiECon, the premier entrepreneurship conference that happens in Silicon Valley every year, as I'm sure you know. And I was watching, like I usually do, all these speakers talk about their, incredible achievements, sort of on the entrepreneurial front and the professional front. And I kept thinking, this is great. I hear this every year. But for some reason, this time I was thinking, at what cost? So, there's an unintended collateral damage that all the professional and entrepreneurial success, many of us chase, has on our health. So those were some of the thoughts that were going through my head. And then I think it was a lunch break or something, I ran into Narenji, who you talked about, Naren Bakshi, very inspirational figure. I knew him earlier, but we hadn't really spent too much time talking. And he had heard about me. He knew that I was a yoga instructor. And as we started talking, he found out more about my sort of own health transformation journey and my passion around the topic of health and well-being. And then he thought there would be a great sort of fit between, my interest, my passion, and the CWC's mission. So we started talking, and then he convinced me to consider joining the CWC's board. And it made sense to me. So I said, absolutely, it's a great cause. And I, joined forces with Narenji and a bunch of other very, talented, experienced individuals who are trying to kind of drive the CWC's mission. So it was kind of interesting that, here we were sitting at a, entrepreneurship conference, and instead of talking about that, we were talking about health and wellness. So I guess in some ways, it was, again, meant to be. So that's how I got associated with the CWC.
Yeah. And in some ways, this is entrepreneurial too, with a different end goal, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not your classic exit for a company or a capitalistic outcome, right? So, so that's great. And I mean, based on, I don't know how long your association has been with CWC. What can you tell us about, what you've seen and done? I know you're an advisory board member at CWC now. So can you tell us give us a little peek into activities or what you've observed, any thoughts associated with it?
Absolutely, yeah. So let's maybe start with the CWC mission.
Okay.
Right. So CWC, it stands for Crack the Wellness Code, as you mentioned upfront. So it's a community-driven wellness movement. Right. So our idea is to offer content, resources, services to help personalize your individual wellness journey. So recognizing we are all different, we want to sort of focus on what makes, what works for Upesh, which is not what might work for me, right? So whatever it is, finding out through engagement and then offering programs, services to help you on your own journey. So that is kind of the mission.
Right.
The easiest way to understand that is, one of the lines that Narenji actually used when we were talking about this, and it really resonated with me. I'm paraphrasing what he said. He basically said that if you look at the Indian community in the US, we get, straight A's on most dimensions, whether it's strong families, whether it's, professional success, whether it's education, financial success, and you name it. But on one important metric, which is health, we probably get a failing grade. And I agreed with him, right? And so I guess one easy way to understand what the CWC is trying to do is we are trying to change this. We want to make the Indian community to begin with, and we are a global inclusive organization, but this is the community that we know. So we want to start there and then sort of touch other communities and other parts of the world, but really sort of transform kind of the health aspect that we talked about in the South Asian Indian community. So it's a tall ask, but that is the challenge that the CWC has undertaken. And with the talent that we have, and we are growing. So some examples of specific programs that we are focused on now. There is a very sort of active and budding track on cancer, for example. We have some excellent resources. We have some people who are doing research on cancer, on the latest cancer treatments. We have some physicians. And we are sort of, trying to figure out if we can build some programs around that. We have some women leaders that have joined the CWC, and we are kind of doubling down on sort of women's health. So there's some examples of, what we are going after, but ultimately the vision is to kind of comprehensively look at health and how we can help each individual on their own wellness journeys.
So walk me through this. Let's say I want to benefit from CWC. Do I enroll as a member, and then I have access to a plethora of contacts based on my unique situation? What all do I have access to? I do understand the fact it's not a hospital, but it's a whole host of people who are capable of nudging you in the right direction or making you aware or providing you support by having undergone that kind of a scenario. So just take 2 minutes and walk me through that, please.
Absolutely. So you can, there's a website, we have a website, we have an app, you can sign up on that. And then if nothing, you can just register to get on the mailing list, right? So we have a lot of excellent programs throughout the year. Again, focused on specific tracks, some examples of which I mentioned earlier, cancer treatment and women's health and things like that. So you can become a member, you can join some of the programs that interest you as a guest initially to just get a feel for what the organization is doing. And our sort of, we think of our approach, we have an acronym, which is, I think, pretty clever, EIEI. So the first E stands for education. So there's a lot of programs focused on education, right? What is the latest and greatest in a particular area that you might be interested in? So we get experts. We have a roster of very renowned physicians that come in and talk to us and talk at our programs. Then the next part, the education, and then the I is inform, right? So educate and inform as to, again, the latest and greatest and what resources should you kind of look at. So we try to provide through our app some curated content in terms of if you are looking for a specific solution to some kind of health, challenge that you have, then we try to provide you some curated resources based on what you need, based on, after we understand a little bit about what you're looking for. Then the next part is empower. So educate, inspire, empower. Right? So give you resources. We connect you to health heroes who are willing to sit down, kind of similar to what happens at TIE, right? You get connected to, experienced entrepreneurs and, investors and things like that. So we have health coaches here that you get connected to and can talk about their own journeys and help you sort of feel more empowered. And then the last is impact in terms of how can you offer specific, things whether it's partnerships with other organizations that are doing leading work in a certain field. So through the CWC platform, you get connected to those organizations, those providers, so you can actually use that in your personal life to make the changes that you want to make happen. So it's mycwc.org. That is the website. I would encourage everybody to check it out and then reach out to us and get involved.
That leads me to my next question, that what are the top 3 motivators that have guided you in your journey thus far? I mean, you did mention personal discipline and some role models and all that, but in general, in life, what are the top 3 motivators for you?
Yeah, so first of all, it's, I really sort of appreciate what I have, right? So first and foremost is the time I get to spend with my family. And sort of one aspect of your own personal health, I feel like, which is the motivator, is, the best thing you can do for your family is try to be healthy yourself, right? So you lead by example, but then you put yourself in the best position to support them in whatever way they need support. So, health as well, it's a cliche, but it's true, right? Without it, there's nothing. I mean, all the fame, all the money, all the, recognition means nothing without health. So that's one big motivator is, kind of be part of the family and put yourself in the best position to be able to support your family through your own health and being a role model. Right. So I think that's one big motivator. The other is the impact that you can have on the community. Right. So the reason we sort of have CWC and the reason we have people like Narenji and me talk about some of our stories is to hopefully inspire people that, this is like, what is possible. So I think that impact on the community, which is also why I got into becoming a yoga instructor. I felt like that was a great way for me to give back to the community and sort of share what I learned, this sort of phenomenal knowledge of yoga and the benefits that it has. So I would say sort of the impact that you can have in the community is another motivator. And then just, what I feel like is, when you start investing in your own health, there is kind of a secondary benefit that I've realized, which also becomes a motivator. Is what I mean by that is, it's sort of you start feeling better about yourself. And when life, as it inevitably, not to get too philosophical, but as we go through more stressful periods of our life, that one thing that you are focused on, what you can control is your health. That gives you a lot of happiness that, I can't control everything else that is going on, but I am focused on controlling what I can control is take care of myself. So I would say, being there for your family, making an impact on the community, and then just sort of grounding yourself and finding sort of that balance and that inner happiness that I'm focused on what I can control regardless of what happens around me. I would say those are sort of the 3 motivators.
Yeah. No, that's really nicely put. So appreciate that. Since we are living in the greatest high-tech area of the world, I cannot help but give an analogy of hardware and software, right? I mean, software is your inner world, your mindfulness, your mental health, your happiness, and the abstract stuff. And, the physical health is the hardware. So I guess both have to work in conjunction and flawlessly to be able to function and do the best things. So
well said, Upesh. I did not think about it that way, but you're absolutely right. Yeah. It's the whole system.
Yep. So actually, I do also have another interview here. Hitendra Wadhwa, he's a professor at Columbia, and he has written a book called Inner Something and Outer Impact. And he also has an institute called the Mentora Institute on the East Coast, where they talk about these things. So, okay. These were the 3 things that guide you. What other words of wisdom do you have for the community, especially the younger generation? Because sometimes we wait too long to take concrete steps, but to create the awareness so that, people adopt this kind of a lifestyle from the beginning. What are some of the words you would say to the younger generation?
So a few things. First and foremost, I'm kind of big on this concept of try to, and it sort of happens, I think, with age and maybe with self-reflection, but focus on what you can control, right? So we can't control what's going to happen in terms of disease or things like that. But proactively starting to lead an intentionally healthy lifestyle instead of being forced to take extreme measures due to a health emergency, right? So it's that simple concept of control the controllables that many people like to mention, right? So that's sort of number one. The second thing is, when the way I sort of think about this is, and I have a big sweet tooth, for example, right? So I really I can make a meal out of dessert.
Yeah.
I
So,
really can.
by the way, so do I.
Okay.
So I
So
understand.
you relate to what I'm saying, right? So, when we talk about focusing on your health, that does not mean that we become monks. Nothing wrong with being a monk. But, if you don't want to be, it doesn't mean you have to become a monk and give up, things that you enjoy. Food, for example, is one of the greatest sources of joy and pleasure, right? So the question then is, can we be more mindful and sort of selective about what we eat, when we eat it, how much we eat, right? So as an example, I have a huge sweet tooth, like I said. So if my wife or my mother or a friend makes some homemade Indian sweet that I grew up eating and have a strong sort of affection towards, I'm not going to hold myself back, right? But then, over time, I've sort of, trained myself to not even look or ignore if there's a donut in front of me or if there's a muffin in front of me, because I don't like it as much. Do I like it? Sure, I can eat it. But so again, it's just being not giving up on what you like, but just being intentional and smart about using your, calories wisely, right? So I guess I would say that is one thing. And then the second thing is, it's my experience has been that, unless there's a medical condition that makes it necessary for you to give up something completely, like, sugar or salt or fat, giving up a food group completely, like, no fat or no carbs, usually for normal, healthy people is unsustainable, right? Because what ends up happening is you start craving it because you don't need it, as I said, unless you have a medical condition. But there's all these crash diets, and then you crave it. So instead of that, have everything in moderation. There's a reason all of these are part of the food group, the food chain, if you will, right? So no need to cut something out completely, but just have it in moderation. So I would say, being intentional, not completely giving up on things that you enjoy, and then just being smart about, what you decide to eat and being balanced and not entirely cutting out things that you like. I would say those are sort of the main things that I would focus on.
Okay. So basically, it's about making choices and not having an extreme approach to things, and you'll be okay. Because people just swing the pendulum too much to one side, and then that's not sustainable, right? So
Exactly.
So this is practical advice, I would say. So thanks for that. So Prasad, we're pretty much towards the end of our interview. And if there's anything, any parting words you have, I'll open it up for you. Just take a moment if you have any closing remarks.
No, but again, thanks for having me on this wonderful program that you have, Upesh.
Yeah.
It was good to talk to you.
Okay, well, that's great. One other point that I can think of is that CWC has an existence both in the US as well as India. They have significant presence there as well. And I believe the websites are different, or maybe one is a sub website of the other. But I'll put both in the interview. And Prasad, I really appreciate you and acknowledge you for making time for me and my viewers, who I'm sure will be motivated by everything you said. I also will wish that they can take you up on CWC and all the goodness it brings. And if nothing else, try it out. And worst case, you make your own decisions. So I wish you the best of luck for future endeavors. Please stay in touch. Maybe we'll have you back again after CWC is a little farther ahead. Take care, and thank you very much.
Likewise, pleasure. Thanks, Upesh.
Bye-bye.